How's it going, everybody? Welcome to this week's LUMIX live session. We've got a really fun, exciting session for everybody today. We're going into a bit more of a tips and tricks kind of session this week with our guest, Ross, one of our LUMIX ambassadors here. But I want to get some stuff out of the way first. So some programming notes for the rest of the year with LUMIX Live. Next week's session, which will still be Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and the following week's session, which is the 31st, Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, will be pre-recorded presentations. I'm taking a couple of weeks off for the holidays, kind of backing away from all the presentation stuff and, relaxing a bit. But we're still going to be bringing you guys some content specifically around, the holiday season, how to utilize your cameras for still gathering with people, even though we're still distancing, at least here in the United States, we're still distancing. So there still will be content next week, but it will be pre-recorded. So that's out of the way. The other thing is, if you are new to these LUMIX Live sessions, we've been doing these since around April of this year. This is our weekly presentation that we do with photographers, videographers, coworkers at Panasonic, team members to cover all kinds of different topics, from topics like this for holiday tips and tricks, all the way into the sessions like we did yesterday, last week, focusing on anamorphic cinematography and ways that the cameras work. So we cover a massively wide range of topics. For this week's session, we have Mark Toll is actually monitoring the chat for us. So if you have questions in there that are maybe a little off topic from what we're covering, Mark will be answering them in there. You'll see him as Mark at LUMIX. Jack is on a bit of a vacation for this week. So again, we're in that time of year. Everyone needs a little bit of time off to, kind of recharge before we get into next year. Again, if you're new, make sure to like, subscribe to the LUMIX Cameras channel. Join us every week. We cover these things. We have the entire backlog of this year's LUMIX Live sessions are all loaded on the playlist in YouTube, so you can always jump back and follow up there. And most importantly, if you have questions that you want to have us discuss during these sessions, tag us at LUMIX Cameras, as you're seeing Albert and MZ are doing in the chat there. This helps me see these questions come up in the chat so that we can address them. And know that if we don't get to every question, that's okay. We also now have an email address for everyone to submit your questions that you want to have us cover on these streams. That email address is lumix.live@us.panasonic.com, and we'll drop that in the chat throughout so you guys have a platform where you can be submitting questions that may involve a little bit more than something we can answer in a quick off-the-cuff answer for this stream. All right, I think that's pretty much all of the core business out of the way. Yeah, I mentioned to like and subscribe. That always helps us, kind of the fun stuff. So with that, I want to bring Ross in here. So, hey, Ross, how's it going?
Good, mate. Good to see you, Sean. How's things?
Yeah, things are good. Things are good. It's lovely down here in Texas. Hopefully, it's lovely out by you.
Yeah, it's typical UK Christmas, wet as it is. But I'm not from the UK, as people might sort of pick up on my accent. I'm originally from New Zealand, but I now base myself in the UK.
Yeah. Well, obviously, with this time of year, we've got the people normally would be gathering together and kind of spending the holidays together. But when it comes to with photographers and videographers, we usually don't like sitting still. We always want to, get portraits and take videos and all of that kind of stuff. So I thought it would be, a really cool segue in with some of the stuff that you've just recently produced about, how to take the best holiday portraits, what, some different posing recommendations, things that you do for your setups, and, kind of encapsulate it into a stream as we lead into the holidays. But before we jump into that, can you give everybody kind of a background as to who you are? I know you've been on the stream before, but we've had a lot of new viewers since then.
Great. So I'm Ross Grieve. I'm a New Zealand portrait, commercial and street photographer based in the UK. I live in Wales, but I sort of travel globally, and my clients are global, but obviously not at the moment. So I've sort of had to readjust myself. But, having to look at your business differently is not a bad thing. But yeah, I've been photographing for over 25 years now. Absolutely love it. And I still pinch myself that, this is my job because it's something I've wanted to do since high school. So that's probably me in a nutshell, really. Did high school art. My parents haven't got a creative bone in their body. So, so I sort of led by my mate's sort of mum was very, very creative and encouraged me. But yeah, I'm of the mindset that you're always learning. So this sort of platform is perfect because you can pick up ideas and tips and tricks, and we always learn off each other. And that's the beauty of the photographic industry, I think.
Oh yeah, and especially now with the fact that, like we said, everything's gone remote and online, so we're able to do this and have more conversations than I think we've ever had, prior to the unfortunate events that led to this year. But it means that, our U.S. customer base, our U.S. photographers and videographers can experience your know-how, the rest of the UK team's know-how in ways that we used to not really do much. So this is really exciting. I'm stoked to have you back on.
Well, and it's sort of giving you another skill set, isn't it? Because everyone wants to have a really good image when they do video calls. And like as a photographer talking to clients, I don't necessarily just want to use the webcam.
Yeah.
I want to look the best and give that, because that sells to clients. I want to look the best and give that best image quality to people. And also when I'm doing viewings now, all my viewings are virtual because all my shooting is socially distanced. So yeah, it's sort of because of COVID and stuff, we've learned a new skill set, which is the norm now.
Exactly. So, let's kind of jump into that, because that's a good segue for, the topic here is, obviously we know that a lot of the viewers of LUMIX Live are in some level of working professional or amateur, but, high-end enthusiast. But we also have a lot of new users that tune in and look for some tips and tricks. So I think let's start the kind of holiday tips and tricks and portraits and stuff like that with kind of maybe a rundown of what equipment you typically use when you're either working professionally and then also like, family, friends, that kind of shooting.
So when I'm working professionally, at the moment, my webcam is actually a LUMIX GH5. So this is a GH5 with a 12mm on the front of it. So that gives me beautiful crisp imagery and that nice separation behind. And that's a thing. When you're shooting Christmas images or any portraits, you want to get that separation. But I tend to use the G series, so the GH5, G9, which is the Micro Four Thirds for my portraiture as well, for lightweight stuff and film work. For my street photography, I'll use a G100 or a GX9. And for my commercial and my big portraits, which I like, it will be an S5 or an S1R. So everything sort of merges together really nicely, and it's like this one big family. And because this is my job, and people might think, well, that's a lot of kit, but this is my job and my livelihood, and that pays my bills and everything. So I need to have the right equipment for certain things. Yes, people sit at home. I want to get into photography. I just want to go out and take some photos. Look at a smaller camera that you feel comfortable with. And I always say to people when they pick a camera up and they want to buy a camera, pick it up and feel it, bond with that camera, because you're going to be with that for a long, long time. And that's the beauty. Like LUMIX cameras, and I'll hold my hand up. I very, very rarely look at the manuals because it's so intuitive, the menus and everything like that. And you just go into it, you tweak it to how you want. The menu tells you what it does. I don't have to flick through reams and reams of instruction menus trying to figure out what's going on. But that's what I tend to use. And I've actually powered this tonight. I'm not using a conventional battery. I've got the mains battery or the dummy battery into my GH5, so I know my battery's not going to run out, which is a good tip if you're going to do broadcasting. Don't always just rely on the batteries, which are very good.
Yeah.
Try and use those sort of accessories because they are there for a reason. That's why they're made. So I am running off mains and then HDMI out. We had a little audio issue earlier.
Yeah. So yeah, no, that's cool. And you know, for everyone getting into this, you know, that I think is one of the most important things about getting into a camera, whether you're looking at something that you just want to first get into interchangeable lens, or if you're already in a system, hopefully our system, obviously, and you know, you you want to get a camera that, you know, you can travel with, have maybe a little bit more fun with. We make pretty much everything to cross almost every style of photography. And I do admittedly say almost, because, you know, obviously some users are very comfortable with certain types of cameras. But what I think is so cool is that with portraiture at its heart, in the modern day, it almost really doesn't matter too much what camera you're going to be using, as long as you have a lot of those kind of core concepts down: posing, lighting, you know, the composition of your frame. So when you're working with someone who is asking advice, like obviously I think a lot of people are here for, what is like the first, you know, kind of tip or kind of guidance that you give someone when they're wanting to do like a holiday portrait or a portrait in general for somebody?
Portrait in general, if you want to photograph people, the best thing you can do is make them feel relaxed and avoid saying the word smile. As soon as you say that word, people just go and freeze and you know, don't want to look at you. And make it fun, make it enjoyable, make it quick. Don't let it, you know, take 50,000 photos and then, you know, oh, hang on, let's do it again. You know, sort of plan in your head what you want to do. So like behind me, we've got the tree, the garlands on the fire and the fireplace, which has gone out. But just sort of make that experience really enjoyable for people. And, you know, because at Christmas, you're going to have small children, teenagers, pets maybe as well. So they're all going to be leaping around. So to get that sort of image quickly, you want to get them all together quickly. And a lot of what people will do, a fault that people will do taking portraits, they'll do individuals first, and then they'll do the group last. So then you've got people standing around waiting. But if you've, and this is the same for weddings as well, if you photograph that group first, there's that relief on people's face. And it's a bit of an icebreaker as well. We've got the group one done, yes. And then people can sort of break off a bit and relax. But if you do them individually and then try and put them back together, it's a nightmare of a jigsaw to put back together.
Yeah.
Another good little tip, if you're doing groups, don't necessarily have everyone going up in like a pyramid. Sort of think of an M or a W. So you get this interesting, so you may be a tall person here, then slightly shorter, then going up to the middle here. And it just makes it really more appealing for the eye. And that's simple, just posing. And even like get people to just turn their shoulders slightly towards camera. And that just is quite flattering for people as well.
Yeah.
And the most important thing, the easiest thing you can do with posing, just sit up straight, pop the shoulders back.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of the easiest tips you can do.
Oh, come on, everyone's sitting hunched over, you know, at our computers all day. It's great.
Well, I actually invested in one of those kneeling chairs because my shoulders are getting a bit round from sitting at a computer, because there's more time on a computer now with, you know, talking to people. So I've actually tried to improve my posture by one of those. But everyone's guilty of rounded shoulders now. So just pop their shoulders back, relax. And another nice little tip, if you're photographing someone straight on and not side on because it'll look really weird, just get them to drop their chin down a little bit. Just if you're doing an individual, and get them to gooseneck, just stick their neck towards you. They'll laugh, which is great because you take that shot straight away. But it'll just square up the jaw, and it's instant cosmetic surgery. You just go that, boom, and you've got nice neck. Everyone's got double chins. Anyone who says it hasn't, it's 2 clips. But if I do this sideways, I look a bit weird. But if I do it straight on and drop my head down, it's quite a strong look. So that's a good little tip as well.
This is exactly why I have a beard. It hides some of the stuff under here, you know? This is probably a good segue then to take a look at some images, because I know you have some images, and then kind of let's walk through some of these and go over the posing, some of the lighting choices, and while you're doing that, I'm going to take a look and see what kind of questions we have in the chat. And as a reminder for everybody, if you have questions, make sure to tag at LUMIX Cameras, and Ross and I will be getting to them throughout the session here. Let's see, I want to answer a couple of these before we move to the next step here. MZ, I know Mark already answered this, but for everybody that's asking and curious, the videos that we shoot here, these are automatically uploaded to the LUMIX Cameras YouTube channel. So under the LUMIX Live playlist, you'll be able to play these back to your heart's content. Let's see, we have a couple questions that I'm actually going to hold from Albert to a little bit later for you, Ross.
Yeah.
And then I think that kind of looks pretty good. And Albert, yes, we are definitely continuing LUMIX Live into 2021. We're just taking a couple of weeks off to recharge and get all of our planning and everything ready for next year. It's been a long, tough year. I think everyone needs a little bit of a break.
For various reasons.
All right, Ross, let's talk about some of these images you got here.
So this is a classic pose. You get someone to sit down on the carpet or on the floor, and they just pop themselves down, and they've got the classic rounded shoulders, and all they need to do is for you just to tell them to sit up straight. And I'm frankly trying to be really professional and go to the next image, but it's not moving on for me. Oh, God, I love the internet. So the next one is a slight improvement. So slightly sitting up, but you really want to sit up straight and pop those shoulders back. And you'll notice the legs displayed to the side as well. So the next image you're going to see is if they roll it up onto the hip, shoulders back, it's a massive difference and a massive improvement. And the subject hasn't actually moved from the spot. Just flick the legs to the side, sit up, and once you sit up, the arms will also relax more as well. They're not forced, they're not trying to hold the person up, and you get this beautiful shape going through someone as well, whether it's a guy or a girl or anything you like. Also with a couple together, it's quite nice, or a family, someone lying in front. That works really, really well. So it's just a simple, quick tip to get a really nice look to your imagery, and it improves the look as well.
Now,
the other one I was going to, yep.
So with that first shot, how do you typically light your photographs like this?
So these images were deliberately lit with available light. So I was sort of thinking of, so I knew I was going to get lots of questions how it was lit. And so all it is available light. So this room that I am in, it's got 4 sort of wall lights on it. So they sort of wrap around. And what you can do, when you've got lights like that, you can be a bit creative. You can also just take some of the bulbs out. So you can sort of, unless it's got a dimmable switch. But we've also got another couple of light sources. We've got the tree, and we've got the fireplace, and we've got the fairy lights. So that's more light sources in there as well, which we'll come to those later. But just for I'm lit myself at the moment. Off camera, I've got a light lighting me, because if I didn't have a light, my face would be quite dark. But because of the way I shot this, and to explain it, and so people could sort of try and recreate these in their homes, because not everyone has nice big Allen lights in their home. So, so I was a bit kind, I thought.
Yeah, no, and that's again a really cool point, is that just because any of us that have worked professionally or do work professionally, It's the holidays. Again, I'm going to harp on that point. It's the holidays. A lot of us don't want to be dragging out all of our equipment that we're shooting with during the year to do some of this stuff. This is one of those cases where I'm a huge advocate of natural light where possible.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But with a portrait, what's really, really important with a portrait, if you notice, you'll look in her eyes and you can see that nice highlight in her eyes. And that's what makes a portrait. That's what really is the essence of a portrait. If you don't have that highlight in the eyes, it tends to go really flat. And it's almost like the soul of a person you can see, and it just lifts the photo and brings life to a photo if you've got that nice highlight in the eye. And you only need one, and that's what it is. And no, her eye, there was like lights on either side, but there's only the one highlight in the eye. It's just the way she's facing and things like that. It's worked out quite nice because she's bang in between. If you imagine a number 5 on a dice, and she is the middle dot, and the other dots are the lights, and that's her position in the lights, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and I'm gonna get to. Well, actually, we'll address this other question, I think, in a little bit. Because there's a question about wanting recommendations or how to set up with studio light later on. We will touch on that in a little bit for the person that was asking that question. But with these kind of portraits, what kind of considerations do you recommend for backgrounds? Obviously that's a challenge when you're talking about, okay, just normal kind of standard portraits. I know you've got perfect examples here of the creative ways that you can get these awesome photos across.
You want to be uncluttered, and at Christmas time it's actually really hard not to be uncluttered. Like, I was even thinking about what color shirt I was going to wear tonight, because if I wore a dark floral shirt, I'm going to get lost and it would be too busy with what's going on around me. So this picture here, where we've got dog and subject in there as well, but we've created depth, which gives that separation. So even though we've got a slightly busy background, Rhiannon is actually separated from the background by focal length, if that makes sense. We've created depth at the back and at the front, and that creates that messiness. When I'm using available light, I just want it to be nice and quick and comfortable, especially when you're using animals as well, because they haven't got the patience at all. They're like children. They want to get in and out. They want to go and play and do stuff. Yeah. So I basically literally expose, so I get nice skin tones, and that's one of my core things. That I want nice, accurate skin tones. I want nice whites, and I want nice blacks as well. And then everything sort of falls into place. So, you notice Rhiannon's hand there. It's nice. It's on the side. That's a good thing to actually start noticing. If you can notice hand posing as well, that'll improve your pictures a lot. You'll notice the first posing picture, her hands were front on. But if those were turned slightly, it would have looked even nicer. But once a hand is, if it worked by the rule, if something bends, bend it, and then you'll get a much nicer flowing photo as well. But nice. Then, it is Christmas as well. You want these to be quick. And this was really quick series of photos. And this shot actually wasn't planned. Rhiannon sat on the sofa. This Whip is the dog's name. And they were just having a cwtch, which is Welsh for cuddle. It's about CWTCH, cwtch. And I thought, brilliant, stay there. So a lot of the photos you'll take this Christmas, you won't set up, you'll see them. And someone said to me recently, every photo is there, you just have to see it before you take it. And I love that, how that was explained. It's just so true. Everything is there in front of you, you just have to see it before you take it. And this is what happened here. I saw the shot, but the highlights in the eyes again, and in the dog's eyes, there's a couple more highlights there. And the trick with pets is treats behind the camera. That's as simple as that.
Oh, yeah.
Or the camera. It's the same with small kids. You've got to treat them the same. You've got to distract them and get them looking over that way. And it's fun. make it fun. Don't get frustrated. If it doesn't work, you've still got that memory, and that's the main thing. You're recording memories, and you're not after an award-winning, groundbreaking image. You're after family memories at Christmas time during a difficult time as well. So
Oh yeah.
that's really,
Yeah,
that's
and
really big.
so Albert's asking in the comments, for this shot, which lens did you use on this shot?
So these were shot with the S1R with the 50mm, 1.4. So hence we've got the nice separation in the foreground, and also the fall off behind as well, which is really nice, which we get that separation. And again, it's shot in available light. And you can also see on the left, you can see the green sort of reflecting off the tree onto the white wall, and that sort of thing. I've just gone for the vertical. You'll notice the vertical behind Rhiannon, again, by the fireplace. That's my vertical. And because the angle I'm at, the left-hand side of the fireplace is not exactly vertical. And I could have tweaked it a bit in Photoshop, but then it's the holiday season, isn't it? We've got live to lead, and I want to make them look as realistic and have a slight imperfection, if that makes sense. Because if photos have slight imperfections, they look real, and I think they have a more warmth to them rather than everything being surgically precise. Because if it is surgically precise, I think you get bored of looking at it and you don't study it as more. If you have a nice little imperfection, then I think that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, and what's also I think really important with some of these images too is we all have this kind of pre-visualization in a lot of our heads that hey, I have a 50-1.4, or say I have like the 85-1.8, the new lens.
Yeah.
There's always that trend, because those lenses are 1.4 or 1.8 in the 85 millimeters case, to just crank it as wide open as possible to do these kinds of portraits. And I think a lot gets missed, especially with something like this, like with the shots that you're showing, especially with a shot like this, because just because we have lenses that shoot to 1.4, 1.8, 0.95 if you're shooting on a Leica, doesn't mean you should be shooting them like that. There's a lot that has to be involved and thought about in a whole picture, and I'm curious what your thoughts are and kind of how your process works for, particularly, this is a perfect shot to kind of explain that concept.
Well, my sort of mindset is, and I am always changing my settings, because I subconsciously change them because I'm looking through the viewfinder or the back of the screen, and because my cameras are set to constant preview, I know what the sensor's seeing, and I know what their look is going to be before. Just because I've got a 1.4 lens doesn't mean I'm going to shoot everything on 1.4, like you say. I'm going to move it up and down to get the right look of the image. But I've got that luxury if I need to go to that end. I've got that sort of comfort zone to go to. And this, for example, we're talking about light and posing. All I said to father and son, which is they are actually father and son, just sit there, face there for a minute, and that was it. And then the natural thing a dad does, he puts his arm around his lad, which is fantastic. And we've got the light of the fire, which you can see the warmth on Lee's face. And we've got the light from the tree and also the warmth down Shuni's face as well. And it's really nice and it's really endearing. And it's really simple to do, but I'd have to look at the actual data, because I jump around with my settings. So I'd actually have to look at it to specifically tell you what it was. But again, I want to get that separation because they're wearing green, the tree is green, and I want my separation in this is actually the light from the fire, because I've got that nice warm glow into it as well. But also sort of think about, now I could have probably underexposed this a little bit more, so to bring in the garlands at the top above the fireplace, because they're sort of quite, but I wanted also to get the expression of dad looking at his son. which is the most important part. So yes, I'd ask them to sit there, but the expression isn't posed. That's natural, and that's what you want. You can ask someone to sit there, and you can pretend you're not taking photos, and that's when you get the magic. That's when you get it, and this is what's happened here.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's something so much about, the genuine expression you get from people. And I've always taken the holidays as kind of my time where I can practice with that kind of shooting, being able to, like you said, visualize and see the moment to take the picture, because a lot of people may look at this and then try to jump in and, direct the person or the family member or the friend that you're photographing. And not to diminish that mentality for portraiture, because there is certainly a time and place for directing a subject that you're going to photograph. But when it comes to family and portraits like this, where there's a lot of emotion tied into an image like this, seeing and having, it's hard to describe, having that feeling of knowing, okay, this is the image that I want to take. That look that he's giving his son, that connection that's there, is not something that you could really direct someone to do and have it come across as the same effect, because it naturally falls into place.
Yes. And now also what his face is actually slightly soft, but again, that doesn't bother me, because we've got because I wanted to be an image. And if I had said, oh, stop, can you move, turn that way, I would have lost it. The emotion would have gone from the image, and you've just got to sort of go with it sometimes. And also composition also comes into this as well, because you look at half of that image is green and the right-hand side is yellow and white. And then everything comes together with this connection with the orange and the yellows on their faces. So this brings the whole picture together. But also having them to the left-hand side allows your eyes to sort of flow towards the fire as well. Yeah. And then it sort of builds, and you see these layers going through. So, not every single photograph of a person in it has to be bang in the middle. You can be creative, and you can introduce the other elements, which are a fire or whatever it may be. And it just makes it creatively better and interesting to look at as well.
Yeah. And I want to harp again on that depth of field point too, because I've seen a lot of obviously, holiday portraits are popping up everywhere on Instagram, Facebook, all of this kind of stuff during these holidays. And there's a consistent thing that I see in a lot of pictures is, it'll be a photograph in front of, say, the tree and the fire like you've got here, but the background becomes so obliterated out of focus that you have no reference point as to what's there. Where with an image like this, sure, you could shoot it more shallow and really get those big bokeh balls that everybody wants in portraits and things like that. But it loses the context. It loses the story that comes across in an image. And now is, again, that perfect time for people to practice that style of shooting. A lot of us, myself included, jump at the fast aperture when you get frustrated with a background because you don't see how to make it fit into the story. When stopping down a little bit, pulling that background in, putting context, just takes it to that whole next level and shows a better understanding of what you're doing. And honestly, this shot, I mean, it's obviously from experience, you have a ton of experience in this. It's like this could also be a perfect advertisement shot because it's, framed in rule of thirds. You've got space where text could go. It's like,
I was going to say that. Print the text.
It's like that perfect, here's the holiday card. That's like perfect.
100%.
Yeah. So as a reminder,
if you spend so much time putting a tree together and it looks amazing, I think you should also show it off and include it in your photos, like you're saying about the big bouquet balls and stuff like that. It does look beautiful, but you say there is a time to actually include that true imagery and the true background into the image. Otherwise, you may as well just buy a bokeh screen and put it behind. And I don't know. I like a bit of realism in it as well. And I think I also like to not necessarily follow what everyone is doing. And I think it's healthy to look outside that bubble, because otherwise it's very easy to get stuck in that bubble, what everyone else is doing.
Exactly.
So yeah, just you're only limited by your imagination, but let your imagination flow, and don't be afraid to try things.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
So when everyone's looking at a bunch of the different pictures online, think of how much an image that isn't following the trends is going to stick out in a field of just blurred out background images if you're looking for that kind of stuff. See, this is perfect too. You know, we're into group shots now.
So this is quite interesting, and some people will get frustrated at Christmas because they don't understand what's going on with colors. And what I mean by it is like white balancing.
Oh yeah.
So what can happen? White balancing is basically getting the true color temperature onto your imagery. So if we're outside, the color temperature is cold or it's blue. If we're inside, the color temperature is warmer and yellow. So if you set your camera to auto white balance, it's 90% of the time it's going to be bang on. But sometimes you may have to go manually. So, and your camera has got those settings that you can do that. You can just select a symbol for inside, or you can select the symbol for outside and it'll get bang on. Or you can use a gray card. So to give you an extreme example, if we're going to shoot inside with daylight white balancing, this is the sort of result you're going to get.
Yeah.
So everything's going to be a greeny blue, looking like they've got icicles hanging off them. So you could pull that back a bit. And the other extreme would be if you've got it too yellow and too warm, then everyone's going to look a little bit sort of ill. So, your auto white balance is actually really, really good. And you look at that, and look at skin tones in your picture. It's the first thing you should look at, and then work from that. And then you get the whites and the blacks brought into it. But if we're talking about obviously depth, if you're taking photos of people and group photos of people, it's really important to think about your aperture as well. Because if you shoot it a really narrow depth, then mum and dad behind here may be slightly out of focus because you're shooting at 1.4. But if you shoot at maybe 5.6 or 8 f8, then everyone is going to be in focus, and that's really important.
Yeah. And that's one of the areas where I actually prefer using my Micro Four Thirds cameras when I'm doing, more casual shooting for the holidays, stuff like that. Like if I'm photographing my dog just kind of chilling out, I love and prefer using my Micro Four Thirds cameras because I can use that sensor size and the depth of field characteristic differences between my full frame cameras and the Micro Four Thirds to my advantage. I can shoot at 2.8 and get more depth. Yeah,
it's much more forgiving. But there is a time when you may not want to have everyone absolutely sharp. And I've absolutely muddled up the order of this because I was having issues before. So we were talking earlier about, and this is what happens when the dog fluffs. And absolutely legs it out of the room. We're also talking about not everyone being center. Again, it works again. Cross-legged rather than stretched out. But if we want to go in and have some really fun casual shots, and this is nice as well. We're talking about to the side of the camera, the sort of mum and dad look, tree behind, fireplace, very simple shot to do.
Yeah.
And then, and you get the kids to take this. This is the fun with Christmas photos, that kids can actually get in and take it. And, mum and dad can have a good laugh. And this is where the challenges start to begin with pets. So you can see my depth of field from the last one has changed quite dramatically
Yep.
because I want full separation because Whip has got the red collar on and the white, so I want that separation, and I know he's going to leg at any minute, and I could have made my life easier and shot say f4, but this was shot at 1.4, but I just think he looks amazing. His coat looks amazing. His eyes just pop by shooting that narrow as well. And all's behind me, and his ears are pricked beautifully. Someone's holding a treat just above my head. Took the shot. He was gone. He wasn't waiting around, was he?
Oh no,
or
not
she,
at all.
So yeah, children like dogs work very similar. They want to get out of there quite quickly and get back to the fun. Now, this is what I talk about. It doesn't matter if images aren't sharp. To me, and this is just capturing the essence of what's going on. It's not a perfect shot. They're moving because I'm using a slower shutter, but they're having a good laugh. You can take it to the next level, and you can improve that by just, if you're using it around to the side, you have the subject who's pin sharp, you've still got that emotion, and you can hear the laughter going on, and you'll look at that and you'll go, oh, remember when you did that?
Exactly.
And that's what's important. So yeah, you can. This is what would happen if you were taking a group shot. Everyone's looking at camera, and you shot with a really narrow depth. But in a documentary style or a reportage style, it works really well. Or candid is probably the best term.
Yeah,
you can get a really nice candid photo. And again, that's a memory, from Christmas time, which I think is really, really good.
Yeah, so like the core of a lot of the things I think that we've talked about so far is like look, again, it's the holiday time. It's this is supposed to be fun. It doesn't have to be technical. And to your point before, little imperfections that may drive us crazy on a paid job.
Yes,
should never drive us crazy when it comes to stuff like this. Having that moment, getting that emotion across, because they're two different, end goals with things like this. You want to capture this and be able to remember, a good, laugh and a good time with family in a really tough time of the year across the board. Yeah.
And if people are laughing in a photo, you should be able to imagine that laugh, and you should hear that laugh as you look at the photo.
Yeah.
And that means you've really captured that moment. If you look at that photo and you can see the laugh, you can hear the laughter, then you've nailed it completely.
Yeah. So I want to jump back a little bit to one of those questions that came up before about some of these images. Obviously there's, like we said, the big push on using constant lighting or just available lighting. What's around us, how we're normally working. But for those that do want to bring it to the next, kind of step up and actually use studio lighting or strobes, what kind of advice do you recommend for their kind of application for like a home studio thing?
I always say start with one light and build from there. So the lighting in here this evening is I have one light here, and then everything else is ambient. But if you start, right, I need 3, 4, 5 lights, and you all put them on, you're never going to understand where that light is coming from. But if you start with one light, and then you build, so then you'll see your key light, and then you may want to add a kicker or something at 45 degrees behind to get that nice rim, maybe another one. But start with one light. I mean, you can get some really cool duo packs and stuff, or packs of 2 or packs of 3 lights, and those are quite good value for money. But I would start, even if you do get one of those packs, just take the one light out to start with and get a nice sort of maybe a 90 centimeter softbox, something like that, or 70 centimeter softbox. Octas are nice. But this is the thing also, people have their preferences. And Don't be afraid to use reflectors as well. Reflectors are a really cost-effective way to bounce light back in and control light. And remember, light does not go around corners, or only go around corners if you help it go around corners with a reflector. The amount of people I have taught, and they expect a light to suddenly go over there. Well, no, because the light's coming this way. It's not going to go over there. But it's just, the thing is practice, practice, practice. Some people will buy like a bust or a mannequin top to practice with, which is really good. But there's nothing like practicing with a real human being and getting used to how that light falls. But also go out, and this is where street photography, I think, really helped me with my photography as well, because I would go out and you'd hit the same locations, because you hit that same location every day, that light is different every day. So you have to think a different scenario each time you go into that location. And it gets your mind processing and dealing with challenges much more rationally and better, and you'll understand how to treat the light, whether it's bouncing off the concrete or if you're using a flash and it's hitting the face, how to control it. So I want to put some more black on this side. Well, okay, I'll put a black reflector. Yes, you can get black reflectors to add contrast and take a bit of light out. Or I want more light on that side, but not a light. I'll put a white reflector. Or I want a hair light. So there's lots of little things, but yeah, there's a friend of mine called Trevor Yerbury. He's a fine art photographer, and he produces the most beautiful platinum palladium prints. Ooh. And he swears by one light. And it is, if you understand that one light, all the other little elements will just fall in easily. Most of the beautiful portraits you've ever seen are just one light.
Yeah.
Just one light.
Now, one of the things that I always like talking with people who ask similar questions like this, and to further push that one light concept is, once you understand how that light affects the image, how it's going to cause shadows to fall on a face, being able to tell, well, how far does the shadow from the nose onto the cheek, where's that sweet spot where it should go, like all of those kind of little fine detail things, is reminding people that just because, we look at a spec sheet and we see that the camera says that our flash sync speed is 250th of a second, right? Learning how to start blending in that natural light in the background, learning how to pull the window light from behind somebody, or in a holiday portrait like this, gathering that firelight that's lighting the tree and warming the wall color up and things like that, knowing that the flash is going to freeze the motion of your subject, but then going to something like a 1/10 of a second exposure, as long as you're still relatively stable, 1/10 of a second exposure brings that background in, and you get just these ultra warm, complete photos. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily look at it that way, because
there's two schools of thought there. You can, like you're explaining, you can really bring the shutter speed down and to get an ambient and warmth in there, or you can go the other end and you can go high speed sync.
Exactly.
Like with a sunset, and your shutter speed is going to be going to control the ambience. So if you're going to have a sunset in the background, you may be shooting about 1/8,000th of a second, so it doesn't overpower the sky too much. There's always another way to do the same thing.
Exactly.
And that's what I love about it. A friend of mine, we went out last year and we were doing high speed sync. He was shooting really high speeds, and I was shooting really low, like you were saying, Sean. And but we got a similar result, and it was really cool. Just because you don't have to go, oh, he's doing it that way or she's doing it that way, I must do it that way. It's the way you feel comfortable doing to get the results that suit you.
Yeah. And for a lot of the people that are probably going to be asking, I'm sure people have these questions. They may not just be asking them, but with a lot of this stuff, when we talk about strobes, it doesn't necessarily have to be studio strobes. They can be, on-camera flashes. Like I have mine, which I'm actually going to grab because I do want to show it. I'm totally prepared.
Yes, here's one I prepared earlier.
So looking at the Micro Four Thirds and the full frame system with Lumix S and Lumix G, we have a ton of flashes available that are relatively inexpensive. Now, I'm not advocating going the cheapest you can when it comes to lighting. I'm a firm believer of, if you're going to invest in something like lighting, invest in lighting. Like buy once, don't buy multiple times. But for those that are getting into it, this is the system I use for my off-camera stuff. It's just a Godox flash with the X1 wireless transmitter, and they work with Micro Four Thirds with our full frame system, and it lets me have that flexibility, to Ross's point, where play with one light. This is more than enough for 90% of the photographs that I think a lot of people are trying to emulate in their own style that we see online. I don't necessarily have to have a light shining on the background. I can work around that. And like I said, these are relatively inexpensive. And we're not sponsored by Godox.
We've got this light source here, which we've got we're talking about the Rembrandt, the triangle on the cheek. But if I turn suddenly, then I'm sort of almost broad-lit, but my eyes are towards camera. So even if you keep that fixed, and you just get someone to turn, you'll understand how that light's falling on their face, and whether it's down or it's bouncing off their head like it is on mine. You get a lot of different looks. Or you can have it directly above and have a reflector below. Have a look at some magazines and look at the eyes and the pictures in the magazines. They're quite a good way to sort of deconstruct a photograph as well.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So I mean, again, the message to a lot of people is like, look, use this time. This is typically downtime for a lot of different professional photographers. I know a lot of you that are in the field, you may not be totally downtime, because obviously the photography business never really stops throughout the year. There's always things that we're doing. And if you're an enthusiast, if you're just getting into this, now is the time to play. You've got all of this equipment, whether you're invested in S series, whether you're invested in G series, or if you're using a point and shoot camera. Now is the time to play with these things and really get out of your comfort zone. Take some of the tips that Ross provided and run with them. Make them your style. Understand that if you get one picture that doesn't technically look perfect, right? Is the emotion there? Is the sentiment of the moment in that image? Do you get a reaction from it? Does the person that you show it to get a reaction from it? If that's the case, I've always been a staunch believer. If that's the case and the person I show this photo to gives that reaction and they love it, then what's to complain about with that image?
I'll tell you a story. First time I had a reaction like that, it was a wedding viewing, and mum and dad came with the bride and groom to view their photos. Very high-end wedding, and mum was in tears, and I'm thinking, oh, crikey, I've really messed this up. Oh, my God. And she turned to me and she went, it's not photography. And then I'm just thinking, oh, here it comes. It's not photography, it's art. And then I just went, I just bawled my ass out. But you get that emotion. And as a photographer, when you see that emotion and you get the reaction off people, it's just the best thing ever. And you know when you take that photo, you've nailed it. You really do.
Yeah, and again, for everybody, remember, this is also typically family and close friends, at least for here in the U.S. I'm not going to speak globally. Here in the U.S., it's your household, hopefully.
Yes.
No statements across the board.
Here in Wales as well.
Yeah. With family has to put up with you. Come on. It's the holidays. If you're hanging out, take photos, capture those memories, share them with your family, because the truth is, if you're not able to be with other, out of your household family members this holiday because you're being on the safe side with everything, what's your grandparents going to want? What are your parents going to want? If you get a photo of your family together, hanging out, having a good time, laughing, putting the stresses of everything going on in the world aside for a short period of time, that's what's going to really encapsulate, what we all are doing these days, trying to find a good time. And photography and even videography, we talked a lot primarily about photography here, but sharing these experiences, that's what photography is. It's sharing experiences in your view. So definitely play around with this stuff.
Absolutely.
That's my message.
Practice.
So I want to answer a couple of these questions that we have in here, because some of them are a little off topic, but I do want to address actually one specifically about the BGH1. Obviously we're off the holiday topic at that point, but Albert was asking if we could, or if we address the BGH1 and the Netflix status, because as some of you may be knowing from reading some of the different publications out there, the BGH1 was accepted by the Netflix Post Technology Alliance group as an approved camera for production use cases. This is a big thing for Panasonic Lumix. This is a big thing for the industry in general, in my opinion. In my opinion, this is a huge thing. And the reason being, and obviously we are Panasonic Lumix, so this is our deal here. This is the first Micro Four Thirds camera to attain this qualification, this classification from an independent source. For those that don't know, Netflix has strict standards that they measure cameras to. You can go to the Post Technology Alliance website. You can read on what their standards are and what they look for in what's classified as an approved camera. Now, I see a lot of people online that are like, oh, well, I'm never going to be shooting a Netflix original, so why should I care? Right? The reason being that this is an important thing is that when you look at cameras and across the board, so this is for every brand that's out there, this is a standard. This is something that is totally dispassionate for any brand, any influence from anything. There's nothing a brand can do to get on this list other than make a product that Netflix evaluates that hits the list. Or the Netflix Post Technology Alliance. I have to make sure I get that correct. Netflix Post Technology Alliance. That's the group that does the testing for them. And the S1H was the first mirrorless interchangeable lens camera to make this list. And now the BGH1 is the first Micro Four Thirds camera to make this list. So if I could give you more info as to what's actually tested and what the requirements are, I would, but they don't even give that to us. It is, they have the camera, they do their testing, and if it passes, it passes. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. So this is an exciting thing for us. So Albert, thank you for asking that question. Like we said, there's a lot of cool things. The landscape of filming and broadcast has massively changed over this year, and clearly the BGH1 fit a necessity for them, and it met the requirements, so it was able to get that classification. Let's see here. Do we have any other questions relating to the holiday stuff? Because we're at the hour. A couple questions about what's that?
Go on, fire them in if there is.
Yeah. Let's see here. Let's see. A couple of the questions were about lenses, which we did talk about. This one's actually for you. When you're looking at doing these kind of holiday portraits, doesn't even necessarily have to be holiday, but obviously this time of year, what is your go-to lens in your kit? This is a personal question.
Okay. I'm go-to lens. It changes from every situation. If it's low light, it's going to be the 50mm. I love the 24-105. I love that lens because it's so versatile. Micro Four Thirds. If I'm looking at Micro Four Thirds, the Nocticron 42.5mm. Love that. I've got the 12mm on here, but yeah, it would be. I would say my go-to would be my 24-105 actually on the S1R.
Nice.
It's such an underrated lens. but, but completely over-engineered. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it.
All right, let's see here. Oh, here's one of the questions. MZ was asking, so the images that you were showing, were those straight out of camera or were they retouched or edited for?
No retouching, just color balanced. So I'll pull them in, and because I'm a color geek. I'm a colorati, so I love color correction and things like that. So I will just look at things and I'll just tweak them, because in this environment you're shooting, especially when you've got a fire going on and you've got lights which are a different temperature, they tend to get very warm. So all I would have done is just cool them slightly, and that's it really. There's not a lot going on. Because when it comes out of camera, it's pretty good. So
Nice.
And you're shot using auto white balance, just to prove a point as well.
There you go. Yeah. So, well, cool. Ross, I want to thank you so much for taking the time this week and connecting with us and providing us some really good tips and tricks and some stories along the way. Hopefully, everyone in the chat enjoyed it, and yeah. This was a really good session.
I really enjoyed it. Always good to see you, Sean. There's also there's a little tips and tricks film coming out, which I believe is on the Panasonic LUMIX page, sort of with some of the images that we did, and there's a little film in there as well. But yeah, as Sean said, just get out there and practice, shoot, and enjoy taking those photos.
Yeah. So, Ross, where can everybody continue following you and keep up on your work after this session?
You can follow me on Instagram. In fact, there's a link in my bio to the little film. So my Instagram is Ross A Grieve, so ROSSAGRIEVE. I even do a podcast, which is called Talking Shot Photography. That's SHOT. And you can sort of listen to there's some LUMIX ambassadors on there. There's some filmmakers on there. We've just done 50 episodes, and something for everyone there. And of course, Twitter or Facebook, just type in Ross Grieve and you'll find me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll leave the links to the podcast, to your Instagram, all that kind of stuff down in the description for this video. So be sure to follow up, take a look at the rest of Ross's work outside of this. And as a reminder for everybody, let me just change camera angles here. As a reminder for everybody, next week we are actually, we're still going to be putting out a video on Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. It will be pre-recorded, so we won't be doing a live Q&A for next week, but we are taking a little bit of time off for the holidays. We will be back the first week in January, which is the 7th. For LUMIX Live again, so we'll be live again at that period. So make sure to join us over the next couple of weeks. We have the new email address that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, lumix.live@us.panasonic.com, where you can be submitting your questions that you want us to cover on LUMIX Live during the session. It is a receive-only email address, so you won't get a response back from it. I already have a ton of emails in my normal day job that I have to be answering, so unfortunately I won't be answering them there. But it'll help us build this content and push it out further for everybody else in the future. So yeah, with that, again, thank you everybody for tuning in. I look forward to seeing the comments that you guys post on next week and the week after's video. I'm having a lot of fun filming those right now for everybody. And with that, I will see you all in the new year live. So thanks for joining, everybody. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, all that fun stuff. See you later.